Dun, 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 dun.
So far, Dune Spice Wars, in regard to being a first-time entry, I believe, in the video gaming world for Dune, at least a first-time entry for me, because, I'm relatively new to this franchise. I came on board because of the Dune movie, which was, again, my first experience that I explained before, back in theaters, and I absolutely it's not an experience I've forgotten about in the months since. I really loved it. But Dune Spice Wars, from what I've seen, is a really good entry in regard to adapting the Dune story in the video gaming space, as many studios are doing these days for their cinematic properties. Video gaming is becoming quite the added venture for studio expansion. And it makes sense. Studios want to get as much money as they can for their properties any way possible. But it also helps to bring in, different types of audiences, right, for a franchise property. And I do think, from what I've seen with Dune Spice Wars, though it's a very different game and format from what I'm used to, I don't tend to play too much in the way of PC gaming, and I don't know Funcom as well as a company from past work that they've done. But in the time of what I've looked at with Dune Spice Wars, I've seen a project that is very reminiscent of the films. Now, I did cover a featurette that expressed that they were trying to hold the vision of Dune Spice Wars as it's created in line with the Frank Herbert novels. So I'm not sure if it was intended in any way to be adjacent to the movies, even though some of the imagery looks very similar in its quality to what the film had established. But the game itself looks endearing. It looks like a fun release. I've seen mechanics to it based on the past couple of trailers that appear similar to other types of games that I've played. Not kind of similar, like territory control, territorial maps, factions, leading your armies, army building, resource collection, stuff like that. There are other games, especially like in the mobile realm, that this reminds me of a lot, even as well in some of the visual imagery. But it's interesting, again, I want to get the best look possible at it, not only to understand, how well this game will perform, but also to understand Funcom as a developer, because I'm not familiar with them really at all, other than this game. And so far, from what I've seen, again, it looks like this game is going to come out with a lot of promise and really do well to expand the Dune brand beyond cinema and streaming, what's in development right now at the very least, into the video gaming world. I think it's a good addition. Let's give this look to the multiplayer trailer. Now, I believe this game, again, is coming out for PC specifically. It's going to be available on Steam, last I checked. And I'm not as familiar with Steam. I have an account on there. I've just never really used it. I plan to in the future. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I would imagine, based on the way I've seen this trailer, the trailers for Dune Spice Wars illustrate the content of the game, that multiplayer is probably going to be a necessary component, because, again, of the army building, it's probably going to help you in the long run. But let's see how the game looks. Again, I'm genuinely interested in seeing more, as much of the game as I can, to get a best perspective on a property. Even the articulation is very unfamiliar to me. Here we go. We'll get it rolling. I would like to do more PC gaming. I got a lot of friends that, dabble in this environment. I'm just more a console guy.
The native Fremen dream of creating a green Arrakis.
The aesthetics, the design, the music choices, the style of the narrations, it's also similar to the movie. So I'm still kind of surprised it just didn't follow suit in the canon of the film.
Smugglers.
And make it adjacent everywhere, in spirit of the book,
by turning the
and exact expansion in the movie.
The noble Atreides, bound by the whims of the Emperor, are blinded by their honor. The board is set.
This is kind of the same as the last trailer we watched, in fact, in some of the specific moments. Oh, some additions.
The Spice War begins.
A lot of promise, at least even in the reviews. Now with multiplayer. Okay, that's basically one giant reminder of the last teaser we watched. Oh, it's out now on Steam, too. Okay, so I'm a bit late in covering this. Well, again, it looks like a very serviceable Dune expansion. Again, I think it stresses the strengths of the last ad very well, too, in the cutscene design. I'm assuming this is like cutscenes. Or maybe it's sort of like a cinematic trailer, and this imagery isn't specifically in the game, but it's adapted for, like, marketing purposes. I mean, you've seen other games, nobody in the console space have gotten cinematic trailers, and, those trailers aren't displaying content that would be, offered in the game. But the reviews are promising. Like this one from PC Games. The developers are getting a lot of good ideas out of a license. That's funny. Like, in other words, Warner Bros. Picked a good studio to go to. As someone who loves 4X strategy games, I was obsessed from Twin Infinite. Dune Spice Wars are shaping to be a triumphant return. That's from IGN. There's another Dune Spice Wars is the bright future ahead of itself. Joe video. There's one more, I think, at the end. Yeah, the Dune video game I've been dreaming of for decades from Cinelinks. So obviously there's a lot of reverence to this game already from, well, okay. I know some people, in terms of like critics versus the audience. I mean, well, I'm loosely aware of, how necessarily game journalists are kind of perceived these days. And again, in accordance to the fans. I think critics are generally, treated with a bit of a stink eye, unless the audience agrees. But at least there's some reverence here, from what I can hear, at least from major game trades that map out a promising game. Maybe the fans will say differently, but from what I've seen, it looks fun. It seems easy for me as somebody who's not familiar with the specific games and titles that Funcom has produced to enter this world because of the game mechanics and be familiarized pretty early on of how to operate within the capacity of the game's behavior. It's just something I notice. I mean, from what I saw in the past couple trailers, it just seems pretty easy for me to access the game. I appreciate that. As a relatively, unfamiliar PC wannabe gamer. Anyway, I like it. It looks like it still has a lot of potential, if maybe the ad was the same as the last one. But hey, it comes with multiplayer. Anyway, that's basically the whole point of to the end of, we now have multiplayer after this giant tease we've already watched. What are your guys' thoughts of Dune Spice Wars? And because it's available now, for those of you who've gotten a chance to try out the game, would you agree with the critics' statements? Again, critics versus the audience. It's an ongoing struggle these days. And it makes sense why. Because sometimes critics aren't necessarily as, on the ball or even on the right note as they should be. But from what I've seen, it fits, again, the nature of the critic reviews. Let me know your thoughts down below on it. If you're a Dune fan, is this the game, in fact, you were envisioning for many years? I think, again, it has a lot of potential. We'll see what happens in the long run. But I've, said it since the beginning with Dune Spice Wars. It makes sense to see this brand expand because, of course, of the movie and the ongoing cinematic developments for the property. Warner Bros. Is going to try to get as much money as they can out of this. But I think it looks good. And from the creative vision behind it in terms of what was expressed by the creators, it sounds reasonable to assume that fans of Dune will probably love this. That's just my general impression, but I've liked what I've seen so far. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.